and my Redeemer. Amen. Please be seated. I'm going to sing you a little song and see if you know the words to it. And I have not practiced this with the choir, so if they spontaneously jump in, that would be just fine. All right, you ready? You better watch out. You better not pout, I'm telling you why. Jesus Christ is coming to town. All right, so you know the song. Yes, that song is eschatological, which means it's a study of the end times. And it was put into this nice little song about, instead of Jesus Christ is coming to town, it was switched out with Santa Claus. He sees you when you're sleeping.
He knows when you're awake.
Right. He knows if you've been bad or good. So be good for goodness sakes. This is the creepiest song ever, right? It also is based on the psalm, God knows you're rising and you're sleeping. And the quotes on God knows if you've been good or bad is so much in the Bible, I won't even try to. I mean, it's just basically the whole Bible says that. So this song is a wonderful Advent song. If you notice, we're not singing it today in the bulletin, but it's there. Santa Claus is coming to town. In the same way, we recognize in Advent that Jesus is coming to town. We don't know the hour. We don't know the day. Many will tell you they know the day and the hour and the time. Do not listen to them. If Jesus said, which he did, I don't know the time, the angels in heaven don't know the time, only God the Father knows the time. The little I understand about the way our brain works is that we can only hold so much information and we can only process so much data at one time. And I would imagine that all of the influences on the world that all have to match like a massive lock that as you start to turn the dial, as every single piece has to lock in, our human brains couldn't hold it. And that's why I think Jesus is saying, I don't know the hour either, that it takes so much to be able to make that happen. And so my question to you is, what are we doing today, and what are we doing in Advent? And more specifically, what in the world did Jesus mean when he said, 2 will be in the field and 1 will be taken? So if I can start with that part. 2 will be in the field. 2 men will be in the field. 1 will be taken, the other will be left. And then, what I love about Jesus, he brought in another gender. So 2 women will be working, and 1 will be taken. He didn't have to do that, and that is really unique in the writing for the first century for women to be named at all. And so he did it, which was great. The idea is that 2 people are laboring. If you imagine how a lot of the houses were back then, they were similar to the condos that we have here on Longboat, where you have your individual dwelling, but you can look down into a common space. And in that space, instead of having a pool or a fountain, they would have a grindstone. And that it takes 2 people, 2 women, to operate the grindstone. So if you're standing up in your pueblo, your condo, you would look down and you would see 2 women working, and then if you turn to the right, you would see the men out in the field. It's a very common thing that when Jesus is talking to these folks, this is everyday, ordinary thing that they can imagine. So for us, it would be, so if you look down, 2 women are swimming in the pool, and 2 men are out walking on Gulf of Mexico Drive. Okay, it's just very normal, common, everyday. I should switch the genders. 2 women are walking on Gulf of Mexico Drive, and 2 men are swimming in the pool. Either way, normal, everyday stuff. 1 will be taken. Have any of you read or are you familiar with the Left Behind series? All right. If you're not, that's all right. There is a very popular book series, I think there are 7, because 7 is a holy number, talking about the idea of rapture, and that 1 person will be raptured up and 1 will be left. And one of the storylines involves an airline pilot who is raptured up and leaves the plane without a pilot. And it goes on to various ways of imagining that. I don't believe particularly in this theology, and so I want to talk about what that theology is and then to give us a different way of understanding or a different way of looking at it. So to start with, where did all of this begin? The Greek word for taken is paralambo. Wait, I just mispronounced it. I wrote it down, so paralambano. I missed the A. Paralambano. This is the Greek word for taken. That word translated into Latin, raptuus. Raptuus is the root form where we get the word raptor. Raptor is a bird with claws that comes down, grabs, and takes away. And so when the Bible for so long was in Latin, they would read raptuus. They would imagine a raptor that comes down and takes, as it would come and take its prey and leave. Likewise, when humans started developing the system of understanding dinosaurs, we came up with a raptor. And the raptor as well, the dinosaur, has claws and would come and grab its prey and then take the prey somewhere else. That's how it works. The problem is that the Greek word itself doesn't represent that type of action. The Greek word for taken is the same way, and it's used 4 times in Matthew's gospel, to indicate the way that Jesus was picked up and was carried. It also is used twice in Matthew's gospel, and I think this is where Matthew is going with it, that Jesus would have his disciples, and he would say, come here for a second. And he would take his disciples off to another place, and he would have a discussion with them. And those discussions are always along the lines of, I'm headed to Jerusalem to be crucified, and I'm going to rise on the 3rd day. And he would break that news to them, and then he would bring them back into the general area where they were. So in this sense, taken is where Jesus is taking his disciples, the crowd's here, and he's like, come here. And another way to look at it is that Jesus would have his disciples center in, and then he would huddle up. Okay, so here's the deal, guys. And he would tell them what is about to take place. That is a closer representation of the Greek verb that we have to take. So how do we then put that into place where Jesus says 2 women are grinding at the mill, 1 will be taken. 2 men will be out in the field, 1 will be taken. The idea is that when Jesus returns, all flesh will see it together. We will all understand it. And for those that have been taken, as in Jesus says, come here, I need to tell you something. And then he tells us over here that those are the folks that would understand what they're seeing. I do not believe that that group of people will be ushered up into heaven to leave everybody else on earth to fend for themselves. And the reason why I believe this is that God tends to repeat in the Bible, and God tends to have a pattern of how God does things. And so in Psalm 23, King David wrote, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will not be afraid, because your rod and your staff are with me. If it was a raptuous, if it was a rapture, a way of drawing out, King David would write, I saw the valley of the shadow of death, and you took me from it so that I didn't have to walk through it. If that was the case, Moses wouldn't have had to part the Red Sea, and the Israelites wouldn't have had to walk through the sea to get to the other side. They would have simply been raptured up and set down. When Jesus prayed to God, take this cup from me in the Garden of Gethsemane, God could have said, I will take you and bring you up away from the cross and set you down over here. When the disciples were in the boat and the storm came up and it started tossing them, Jesus didn't say, I'm going to pick you up and I'm going to move you over here. Instead, he calmed the seas. God is with us. God is with us wherever we go. Whatever we're going through, God is with us. And so I have a hard time understanding the rapture guide, the one that would take us out of something. In Isaiah called the people of the faith that we would call Jews, "You are the light of the world. You are the light being sent out to the world." Jesus said to anyone who would listen, "You are the light of the world." And in our reading from Isaiah this morning, "Many nations will stream to your light. They will see you on your holy hill, and they will draw to you." If we were removed, if we were taken out, who in the world is going to be the light? Who is going to bring others together? So let's take a look at it in a different way. I'm going to read you a little story. And this is by, his name is Arthur Kleinman, and his wife's name is Joan. And so he writes, "I still sometimes wake in terror, haunted by the nightmare of an episode almost 15 years ago, when my wife, Joan, who was suffering from Alzheimer's, accidentally locked herself in our bathroom. Not only had the disease robbed her of her reasoning, it also left her functionally blind. Pounding on the door and screaming in fright, she couldn't follow the simple instructions that I kept repeating, how to unlock the bathroom door. I had no way to get to her. I tried to reassure her that a locksmith was on the way, but she grew increasingly distraught. She fell to the floor and began howling in misery. I slammed my body against the door. I kicked the lock. No avail. By the time the locksmith arrived, my wife was delirious with fear, with frustration and fatigue. I was broken, realizing there was nothing I could do to make life right again." I want to talk about this in light of the 40 to 50 million Americans who are caring for a loved one at home, and they are the primary caregiver. The images of two men in a field show strong, robust men. The two women working with the mill have to be very strong and powerful. But what about today? If I were to talk to Arthur about a God who takes us out of our misery, he would disagree. He would say, "God is with me." He would say, "God has given me strength and guiding me through each one of my trials." If I were to talk to him about a God who raptures somebody out, he would have said, "But what about Joan? What about my wife? Why was she stuck?" I think it's because God is with us. I think God is supporting us and carrying us through. Marriage is hard. Relationships are hard. And God doesn't take us out of those things to fix our messes and then drops us back down. God gives us strength. God gives us energy. God gives us power to work with him through all of life's troubling times. It's a nice, fanciful idea to think that that's how God works. And I've been told if I want to build this church, I can simply make this church to be a toll booth on the highway to heaven, and that I can tell people that you can't get to heaven unless you come here and you've got a special certain coin, and if you've got that coin, you're on your way in. And I could talk about how Jesus is coming tomorrow and how I know that he's coming tomorrow and that the only way to be saved is to come through our toll booth and to go this route. We could grow the church that way. That is not our call. Our call is to be with Arthur and the Jones of the world. To be the ones to help and support. To be the light in times of trouble. When people are feeling blue and down. To be the light and to shine with them. And so with this Advent, as we are preparing for Christmas, and as the world takes symbols and takes away the notion of Jesus returning and instead puts in a jolly guy in a red suit and says that Santa's coming to town. Instead of that, and as a world that's trying to distract us with all the various things that are going to happen in December, and there's going to be a lot of things happening in December, There's going to be shopping. There are going to be parties. There are going to be family arguments. There are going to be all sorts of things on the news that I'm not even going to touch that's coming up in December. All sorts of things that are going to be distracting you away from the baby being born in the manger to bring the light of the world. And so during this season, may we bring the light to the Arthurs of the world. May we be the supportive and caring hand for the Jones of the world. And may we know that God, no matter what we're going through, God will always, always be with us. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.